What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Logisticalstyles coming at you with another video. This time we've got some exciting stuff to get into. I've got my hands finally on the new Rane 12 MKII turntable, and I'm going to do some comparisons and talk about the upgrades and the new features that have been added in comparison to the Rane 12 MKI. So I'm using this with my Numark Scratch mixer, which I also did a previous video on, and I still love this mixer. I've had it for about 6 months now, and I'm still enjoying it. And with the addition of the MKII, I'm starting to love it even more because it's making me less regret the fact that I don't have a 72 or a 70 or even an S9. But we'll get into the features, and we'll get into how it complements the mixer, and the mixer works well with the decks, and let's just hop into it. As you can see, I finally got two Rane 12s. One is the MKI that I've been using for the past year, and this one is the MKII that was just released a few weeks ago. I finally got my hands on my own, so now I have a complete set of Rane 12s. One's an MKI, one's an MKII, but I don't feel the need to upgrade this MKI anytime soon because everything I need is on this deck, or it can be accessed through the mixer. So I'll get into my workflow and show you how I'm using some of the new features and how I'm changing my workflow now that I have the complete setup. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at some of the cosmetic changes. It's not a whole lot of them. They're almost identical, save for a few things. If you'll notice on the front, the original one says Rane 12, and this one just says Rane. It's just a cosmetic difference. Doesn't make any difference to the performance of the deck. You've got the badging, the branding is a little bit different on it. You've got a Serato logo here. You don't have a Serato logo. Oh, it's been moved to over here underneath the LCD screen. You have really, as far as cosmetics, it's probably the biggest change, or the only change that they've done, if it wasn't adding a new feature. One thing they did change, in addition to just having removing the 12, is they added these markers at the 12 and the 2 o'clock position. It's not on the MKI. They added that, and it's actually a small thing, but it makes using it a little bit easier, especially when you're getting into beat juggling and doing a lot of back spinning. You want to be as accurate as possible. And prior to the MKII, I was kind of utilizing or visualizing a 12 o'clock point, or using the screw that's at the 12 o'clock point, but it's at the top of the unit. Now let's get into the knob. This is the first thing that jumped out to me when I was looking at it, and I was like, dang, what's the knob for? Hoping, and it actually did come out to be, the knob is for scrolling through and loading songs from your library. So that's a really nice feature to have, especially if you don't have the higher end mixers that have that option, or even with the Numark Scratch, you can scroll through your library to a degree. You can scroll through a crate and you can load a song, but it requires using a shift feature along with the knob, so you use two hands. With having the knob here, now you can just use one hand to scroll through your crates and to just tap it to load the song. Another feature that is really nice with it is the back button. With the Numark Scratch mixer, yes, you can scroll through crates, but you can't jump out of a crate to find a different crate to jump into and then scroll through that. You can't jump back in and out from crate view to inside of the crate view, if you know what I mean. With the back button, that lets you, say you're in a crate and you're scrolling and you want to jump to another crate. With the back button, you just hit that back button, it jumps you back into the list of crates and the list of playlists, and then you can scroll through there, hit back again, that jumps you within to that playlist or that crate, and you can continue to scroll, tap the knob, and you load the song onto the deck. it really cuts down on moving around and dragging and dropping songs or trying to load songs when you can just hit instant double and you're right to where you need to be. Next we have the there's a screen. The screen is actually it's nice to have, but it's not essential. Like I could live without the screen, but it's nice to have because I did go into the the all-in-one controller world for a little while, and one of the things I always wanted on my jog wheels was to have some kind of information to keep me from having to look at the screen. And one of the most important pieces of information is your speed, your BPM. So now, yes, it is on the deck. It's added to a deck, and it's accurate. It matches it right up to what's on the screen. So when I'm changing my pitch control, I'm seeing the changes right there. So I'm really liking that. Next we have another button above the screen, and it kind of coincides with the screen, and this is a really big thing that is going to open up the market for other people to use this equipment besides just Serato users. The DVS control signal or noise map or whatever the company calls it, you can find that for Traktor, Virtual DJ, and Serato. And that's really big because now you can use those programs with this deck and have, you know, the native controls there like it was made to be there, like, because it was actually made to work with those programs as well. Now the MKI, from experience know it did work well with Virtual DJ. I think there was some small tweaks you had to make to mimic exactly what you were getting with a Serato DJ, but it did work with Virtual DJ. Never even tried to do it with Traktor, but it's really cool that it has the ability to play with all those softwares now. And I do know some DJs that are getting these decks now specifically because it works with Traktor or Virtual DJ. Now people may be wondering, how exactly does this work? How is this deck putting out the control signal or the noise map for these programs? Well, the secret is actually down here when you look below. If you look below, you'll notice that there are a set of RCA jacks that have now been added to the bottom of the unit. Previously, there was no RCA jacks. It was just one USB port and one power port. So the RCA jacks, they actually are where the signal is being put out. And yeah, if you were to switch this to line and play on through mode in Serato, you will hear that same noise map or that control tone that you hear when you play a regular control vinyl on a regular turntable. So it's really cool that this device is now putting out some audio, even though the audio is only control signal or control tone. But it's really dope that it does that, because now so many more people will be inclined to use this with their different softwares. I have tried it with the DVS mode for Serato and compared it to using USB mode with Serato, just doing some juggles, doing some scratches and stuff, and there is a difference if you're looking for it. That's what I kind of figured out or noticed, but if you just hop on and you're just going to do some mixing and playing with it, you might not really have a preference for one over the other. I mean, if you're really picky about the feel of it, yeah, you will. You notice something, if you're looking for it, you'll be like, this one's a little bit tighter. I guess that's the way you would describe it. But to me, I can just as easily play with them in USB mode. In fact, right now they are in USB mode. The only reason the RCA is hooked up now is because I was testing with it earlier. After that, there's not a whole lot that's really changed with the deck. The deck is pretty much the same. I measured them. They're the exact same measurements. The only changes are the physical knobs that have been added and the extra buttons. The touch strip is still the same. I'm not really big on the touch strip. The only reason I use the touch strip is when I'm, loading through songs and it may load a song right in the middle. So I'll use the touch strip to bring the song back to the beginning, but even that's a bit of an annoying pain because you have to stop the deck to use the touch strip. Well, use the touch strip for the needle drop function. If you're in Q mode, then the touch strip still works with the deck playing. But I really don't use Q mode much on the decks. I'm wondering if that will change because the Numark Scratch mixer only has 4 Q pads, so I lose out on the ability to have my 8 Q points readily available. I don't have a lot of songs that require me to use more than 4 Q points, but well, I would say 5 would have been a better number. If they could have put 5 pads instead of 4, then probably would have been better, because I always seem to just be 1 pad shy of what I need to do. But now that I remember that there's Q mode on these decks, I can probably start using that a little bit more, especially since the lights do correspond with the color of the Q points on the screen. My only gripe is that it's not as reactive or as accurate as these MPC style buttons that we use for the pads. This is just a touch strip, so your mileage will vary according to your touch. So sometimes you might hit it, sometimes you might miss it. Which is why I didn't really jump on using the Q points or the Q mode on the Rane 12. You still got the same pitch range. You can select from 8, 16, and 50%. That back button, I'm loving it. It's kind of weird that they only light up, the back and the instant doubles button only light up when you press them momentarily. So they should last forever, because they're not like the deck selections where they stay lit up. The platter is exactly the same. The control disc exactly the same. Same quick release spindle adapter. Oh, another change. This was another one that I didn't really think would be a big deal, but I kind of like it, and that is the start stop button. So the start stop button on the MKI is just a kind of a clicky button. Just click, 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 on, off. It illuminates, deluminates when it's on or off. The new one is a plunger style button, which is similar to what you have on a Technique 1200 or another, professional turntable. You definitely can feel a more in-depth clicking when you hit it. It's the best way to describe it is this is like two-dimensional, up, down, on, off. This feels like a little bit more three-dimensional because you're pushing into it. So you got like a plunger style feel to it. And it is nice especially if you're the type of DJ that uses start-stop tricks in a routine, or you hit and start and stop a lot. I know I usually stop the deck in between songs when I'm looking for the next song to load onto, so I use the start-stop button a lot. So I do like the feel of the plunger style button. But beyond that, it's still a solid deck. I hope that they were able to figure out what was going on with the motor issues that the first couple of rounds of the MKI were having. I know even myself, I had a problem with a deck that would just spin out of control randomly, and I had to send that back to get repaired, and they said they ended up replacing the motor on it. So it wasn't just a firmware fix or anything like that. It seemed like there was some hardware that had to be figured out or fixed or replaced. So that's what and that's what Rane's repair shop, which was a third-party company, they told me that they replaced the motor. So I hope they have settled upon good motors, that they don't have those problems that people have experienced, like the spinning really fast. I think they called it helicopter mode, or some people had it spinning in reverse. So far I haven't had any issues like that whatsoever with this MKII. After they got me sorted out with my MKI, they had a little back and forth and we got that settled. This has been rock solid, which is what made me go out and get this one. When this one dropped, I actually was going to get another MKI back in March, but that's when they started selling out. You couldn't find them anywhere, and guess they were preparing for the release of this. So I'm glad the timing worked out for me really well with that. So now I've got the best of both worlds. I can really tell you if there's a difference, and I feel like there's no difference as far as play wise, but the improvements of the control and the workflow additions, that makes this a much better deck for you now. And if you have a mixer like the Numark Scratch, which has some limitations, this actually fills the void that those limitations give you. You've got on-deck control for scrolling, loading, and visual feedback for your BPM. So that's all nice to have, and it makes for a much more enjoyable DJing experience in my opinion. I got to also come back and say this is something that I had to learn the hard way. There was a couple of things that you got to take into account when you are, going from the MK1 to the MK2. So because you have this feature of going to DVS mode, you have to be cognizant of what mode you're in. So USB mode, even for Serato, USB mode is not the same as DVS mode, or it doesn't react the same if you don't have it hooked up correctly. And one of the mistakes I made was I initially, when I was fooling around switching through the different modes, I switched it back to Serato DVS mode. So at that point, the deck was expecting to be putting out the DVS signal into the RCA of my mixer, which would feed into Serato, and that would control the music. Well, I didn't have the RCAs hooked up, so I was in DVS mode but didn't have the RCAs hooked up. So weird stuff was happening, like my cue points would hit. If I hit a cue point, it would start the song. First of all, it would automatically put me into relative mode. When you're in Serato DVS mode, you have to be into relative, and it will switch it for you. I didn't realize it. I just could not figure out why every time I looked up, it was switching to relative mode. So that's one thing. And because it's in relative mode, it's looking for a signal. If you don't have the signal, guess what? The platter doesn't work. So if you get into a situation, and I hope this helps somebody, because I was bugging for a good 10-15 minutes. If you get into a situation where the deck is on, the lights are on, but when you hit play, it would spin, the deck would spin, but Serato would not spin, and there was no music. So I could hit start and it'd do that, but there'd be no movement on the screen. I'm like, what is going on? Why am I not getting the movement? And then it was just a matter of reading through the instruction manual, a little bit of critical thinking, and like, got to connect. It's in DVS mode. So when I went back and switched into USB mode, that's when everything worked exactly as expected, just like you would get from 12 MK1. So just remember, when you're using the MK2, you gotta be sure of what mode you're in, and then also upload or upgrade to the latest version of Serato. So just because your MK1 works with Serato DJ Pro 2.3.4 does not mean that your Rane 12 MK2 will work with it. In fact, it won't work. You'll have to update to, I believe it was Serato DJ Pro 2.3.8. So remember, update your Serato to the latest version when you get this deck. Also, be aware of what mode you're in. If you're gonna use Serato DVS, you've got to have the RCAs connected, otherwise you'll get unusual behavior. And if you're in USB mode, it's going to work just like the MK1. So with that being said, let's get into some mixing and let's have some fun and show you what this thing can do. Okay, so and there you have it. Okay, the Rane 12 MK2, Rane 12 MK1 working together side by side with the Numark Scratch mixer. Everything is working well. Everything is sounding good. The control is there. The feeling is there. Everything that I'm used to doing with vinyl Technique 1200 I'm able to do with this digital setup. So I'm definitely going to give it my stamp of approval. I cannot recommend it enough. I definitely say go out and get it if you can afford it, or if it fits into your workflow or into your budget. No reason not to. I haven't come across any flaws that just turn me off. I mean, the price is a little bit high, but you got to invest in yourself if you want to continue to push your career as a DJ. And the way things are going now, you got to really pivot and think before you make purchases. I'm not really planning on doing a lot of live mobile gigs anytime soon, or any club gigs, but I still am going to be doing my internet thing. I'm going to be finding other ways to DJ, and this is just, you know, my release. This is what I do. If it could easily be a guitar or another instrument that I could be playing to actually, you know, release some stress, but this is what I do. I beat juggle, I scratch, and these are the tools that help me do it and get the results that I want. And so with that being said and done, I'm about to sign out. Hey, thank you for coming by. Thank you for checking out the video. I know this was kind of a long one. I've been trying to keep everything under 30 minutes, but you know, things happen. I get new content I got to add, and the videos stretch out a little bit longer. But hopefully this is all worth it, and you're learning something, and you're being able to take some information and use it to make a wise decision if you purchase this or if you don't purchase this. But please subscribe, click the bell, make sure you get the alerts, make sure you know when I do post a video. I try to only post videos when I have something meaningful or something relevant to say. I don't want to do a whole lot of filler stuff. So you treat me right, I treat you right. You subscribe, I give you good content. That's how it works. With that said and done, I'm out. Logistical Styles. Look out for the next video. Peace.